Okay, let's then raise the big questions that this verdict has shown, and we are going to get some of the top analysts to look, people who've known Kejriwal very closely, in particular who've known Mr. Modi, and get them to analyze this verdict for us. And my first big question is simply this: has this been a referendum against Arvind Kejriwal, the individual and his politics? I'm joined in the studio by Rajat Sethi, political analyst who shares alma mater with Arvind Kejriwal. They both went to IIT Kharagpur. I'm joined by Yogendra Yadav, someone who was part of India Against Corruption and eventually left the AAP to form his own group, the Swaraj Abhiyan. I'm also joined by Ashutosh, who was also part of the Aam Aadmi Party during its early formative years. In fact, led the party in its Delhi unit and then eventually disillusioned, left the AAP. I'm joined by Sanjay Kumar of CSDS and by Yashwant Deshmukh, both of them psephologists, one from CSDS, one from C Voter. So we're going to look at numbers and we're going to analyze the big questions. The first question, as I said, Arvind Kejriwal, was this a referendum against him, the individual? Yogendra Yadav, why don't you kick this off for us? Do you believe this was a referendum against what Arvind Kejriwal stood for, his politics?
Rajdeep, sadly there is no other way of answering this question because the question was already answered by Arvind Kejriwal himself. He said this would be a referendum. He invited the people of Delhi to decide whether he should be the chief minister or not. And the people have delivered a verdict. I must also say that the referendum is not as bad on Arvind Kejriwal as it might look because the difference between 48 and 22 looks huge, but in terms of percentage of vote is only 3 percentage point. And someone later might wonder not why Aam Aadmi Party and Arvind Kejriwal lost, but someone might wonder, given the scale of discontent that has been brewing, why was the difference actually so small as 3.5%? That might be the question. I must also underline the fact that there is no one who sympathizes with Aam Aadmi Party in this studio. So it may not be entirely fair for this panel to come to a conclusion. I really wish there was someone who would put up their point of view, as Rajat Sethi would do for one party. People like Ashutosh and me have a different viewpoint.
We'll wait to see what the Aam Aadmi Party has to say in terms of their leadership. And yes, Rajat, an interesting point made by Yogendra Yadav that despite the large discontent or seeming large discontent against AAP, the truth is the AAP still got 44% of the vote. The gap was barely a little over 3%, which signifies almost that, as I've been saying through the day, that Delhi saw a bit of a class divide. The lower incomes still with Kejriwal, the middle classes with the BJP.
The moot point that has just been tabled is that, okay, the numbers might look a little too skewed in favor of the BJP, but the vote share is close enough, and he has sort of a consolation prize to take back home. But let me tell you, this is not how politics should be looked at. I'll give you an example. Pick Telangana state, BRS party and the Congress party. Do you know their vote shares? 39% was Congress and BRS was 37.5%. But within that 1.5%, today BRS is completely uprooted from Telangana state and there is no coming back for the BRS in Telangana. Similarly in Delhi, you might have led your party to 43%, but now you've lost power. You will see this vote base gravitate, further move towards the BJP, further, collapse and get shredded into pieces. Other parties like the Congress party would want to scavenge onto this and, and try and take away as many bits and pieces away from the Aam Aadmi Party as possible. And he does not remain onto a constitutional position, Arvind Kejriwal ji himself, and therefore it will be very hard for him to hold this 43% or 44% vote share. This is how the decay starts.
Okay.
It's going to further decline from here on.
Okay, we're going to look at the future of Arvind Kejriwal in one of my questions, but I want to look at that basic question that I've asked at the outset. Was this a referendum against Arvind Kejriwal? Yashwant Deshmukh, let's look at the numbers with you and Sanjay Kumar for a moment. 44% versus 47.5%. 3% gap. results in a difference of 26 seats. That can happen, of course, in Indian politics as the elections become more bipolar in this instance. How do you interpret those numbers?
Well, Rajdeep, they drop in 10% votes of Aam Aadmi Party. That blame goes to Mr. Kejriwal and Kejriwal alone. But that's not the full picture. The full picture is whatever Aam Aadmi Party actually got today, the credit also goes to Mr. Kejriwal. You know, the kind of politics, the kind of governance, kind of vote bank that he built, whatever it is. Yes, I know the party came out of a movement, an Andolan and anti-corruption Andolan and everything. But the fact is, Mr. Kejriwal and Aam Aadmi Party go hand in hand together, just like Mr. Modi and BJP go hand in hand together, as far as the perception and the narrative goes. So he has to be blamed for the drop of 10% points, but he is the man who got the 43-44% votes as well. So, I don't know what to make out of it, that whether it's a referendum. Yes, of course, it is a referendum, as Yogenji said. He himself said that it is a referendum only. So he cannot shy away from him. But at the same time, I don't like to write political obituaries so quickly as many do. I still feel that this man is not going anywhere.
I just want to look at the numbers at the moment. Sanjay Kumar, interpret those numbers for us. Arvind Kejriwal goes to 44%. He had got about 53% last time, so he comes down by about 9%. The BJP comes up by about 9%. So there is a 9% effective swing, you could argue, in favor of the BJP. Should we see this as the Delhi voters negatively rejecting Arvind Kejriwal?
There's no doubt about that. The Delhi voter has negatively rejected Arvind Kejriwal and Aam Aadmi Party. But the vote share difference you are mentioning, we all know that there is a 3% vote share difference between Aam Aadmi Party and BJP. But if you look at the difference in the seat share, it's a very large difference. That is only because if you go seat by seat, there are roughly 12 seats which Aam Aadmi Party possibly could have not lost if Congress has not polled so much of votes, or hypothetically if there was some kind of an alliance with the Congress. So if you look at these 12 seats, if even half of those seats has gone in favor of Aam Aadmi Party, the tally would have looked much more decent, and BJP's tally would have come down to say 40-41, and Aam Aadmi Party's tally could have easily gone up to 30 seats. That is why this 3% gap in the vote share has resulted into such a huge gap in terms of number of seats.
You know, I'll come again to the Congress point later, but Ashutosh, your first reactions, I want to list out, it's not just Mr. Kejriwal. He lost himself from New Delhi. Manish Sisodia, Deputy Chief Minister, lost. Satyendra Jain lost. All three of them had spells in jail, all three of these leaders. Do you believe this was a vote against Kejriwal? Should we interpret it as that, or are we being hasty to conclude the same?
So I think let's be very clear on this point that this is a vote against Arvind Kejriwal as nobody else. Arvind Kejriwal has lost in his own constituency. What better deal can be? So the man in last parliamentary elections in 2019, Aam Aadmi Party got only 18% vote share. It is because of the Arvind Kejriwal that the vote share from 18% jumps to 54%, a jump up 36%. Now, there is a drastic drop of almost 11%. And Arvind losing in his own constituency. Remember in 2013 when he was contesting the Sheila Dikshit, then he defeated Sheila Dikshit with more than 25,000 votes. Now the issue is, as a novice, he was in a position to defeat Sheila Dikshit because people have trust in him that here is a radical revolutionary who has promised to change politics. Now, if we start looking like any other politician, and his politics instead of getting from moral standard to become transactional, then obviously there is a loss of so much moral power, moral capital which Arvind Kejriwal had. Now the issue is, it's not only Arvind Kejriwal is not, even the Manish Sisodia, the number two in the party is also not. Satinder Jain has also lost. Durgesh Pathak has also lost. The only person who could claim to win the election was Atishi. So let's be very clear on this. It's a verdict against Arvind Kejriwal,
Okay.
and Arvind Kejriwal and nobody else to be blamed for this. And
Okay, you're
he
saying Arvind
converted
Kejriwal,
entire
it's a
party.
verdict. Okay, let me now break down this verdict further with my second question. There is a belief that this was a middle class wave for the BJP. Delhi has a large, substantial middle class. Was this the middle class anger, fatigue against alleged misgovernance or the betrayal that they saw in Mr. Kejriwal? Yogendra Yadav, as I look around the city in places like Malviya Nagar, places like Greater Kailash, strong middle class bastions, as well as in West Delhi, Punjabi heartland, large parts of middle class Delhi, New Delhi seat itself, large government employees. It seems that the middle class romance that once existed with Arvind Kejriwal is now officially over. Would I be right in saying that the middle class voted against Kejriwal even as the poor and the lower income groups stayed with him? There was a class divide.
Your point about class divide is absolutely right, though I think we tend to slightly overestimate this middle class factor. Allow me to introduce 2 or 3 notes of caution. Number one, as I never tire of saying, there is nothing middle about this middle class. India's top 10 percentile likes to call itself middle for reasons which are entirely unknown to me. In Delhi, that 10 becomes about 30, but these are 30% people at the top. Number two, these have always been BJP voters, predominantly BJP voter. So I would imagine about 60-70% of them would have voted BJP in the Lok Sabha election. But yes, over the last 2 assembly elections, a smaller but significant chunk of this so-called middle class voter had switched from Lok Sabha to Vidhan Sabha in favor of Arvind Kejriwal, in favor of Aam Aadmi Party, because they saw this as a party of hope, party which is doing something different, party which can possibly do something nice for the city. A significant chunk of them, I would reckon about half of those, probably even more than half, of those of that small slice of affluent voters who normally shift from Modi to Kejriwal for an assembly election, this time about half of them refused to make that switch. That was decisive? Yes, it was. But let's not forget the fact that this unease was spread across many segments of population, was not as strong in other areas. But by and large, if you look at the swing against Aam Aadmi Party, it is relatively even. Aam Aadmi Party has indeed done better in areas with working class. But that is because Aam Aadmi Party's margins were very big to begin with. The swings are not entirely uneven. That's my impression, but that can be confirmed by tomorrow or day after.
Can you give us more information on that, Yashwant Deshmukh? The swing away from the Aam Aadmi Party, was it far greater in middle class pockets than it was with lower income working class? Because it leads me to my next question, that does this election reflect a sharp class divide? Did you see that in your study, in your polls, a sharp divide between lower income groups and the middle classes? I was speaking to Atishi, the former Chief Minister of Delhi, and she said that it was in the booths predominantly in the middle class areas where she didn't poll enough, and that's why she was struggling till the very end.
It would have been starker divide, you know, in our post-poll number, in our tracker, and even in Sanjay Bhai's numbers, if you look into the income groups, as the income went up, the support for the BJP went up. As the education went up, support for the BJP went up. So obviously there was a very, very, very clear class divide, and it was very acute. It was not a class divide where one would say, ये 5% आगे इसमें है और ये 6% उसमें है. You know, it was a sharp divide like 2/3 and 1/3 kind of thing in the topmost income bracket and the lowermost income bracket. So obviously there was a class divide. Arvind Kejriwal or Aam Aadmi Party did manage to poll a huge substantial chunk of the low income group, the Jhuggi Jhopdi voter, the Dalits, the Muslims. They got the huge chunk of that. But as Yogenji just mentioned, a significant chunk of the middle class, due to the Andolan and due to the goodwill for the anti-corruption stance taken by Aam Aadmi Party in the initial years, did swing to Aam Aadmi Party in last two general election. It was the same voter which as a split vote swung from the BJP to AAP and back to the BJP, because the same voter for whom the Narendra Modi and Arvind Kejriwal both were heroes in that way.
Right.
And that's why we were looking in 5 elections back to back, a huge split vote, pendulum swinging from one side to the other side. The only difference being that last time when the pendulum swung, it just remained there in the Lok Sabha election. It did not really swing back to Arvind Kejriwal. And probably that has a lot to do with the image going down, image of the corruption crusader thing, the alleged scams of on the liquor scam and the Sheesh Mahal, by the way. Only problem with the BJP has been pushing
I'll look at that specifically, but I just want to know from you, Sanjay Kumar, can you also confirm your post-poll survey, sharp class divide?
Not as sharp as it used to be in 2020 and 2015, though Aam Aadmi Party had won both the elections handsomely. But even in that election, the vote share of Aam Aadmi Party was much higher among the poor and the lower classes compared to the upper and the middle class. When there is a 10% decline in the vote share of Aam Aadmi Party, yes, we can see the decline in all the 4 classes of voters, but the decline among the middle classes and the upper classes is much sharper compared to what we see among the poor and the lower classes.
Rajat Sethi, you've been since morning telling me do not only focus on the middle class. The BJP chipped away at all classes. In the Jhuggi Jhopdis also, they made some kind of a dent. They made it among lower income groups, but predominantly, the middle class seems to be the one which has strongly stood by the BJP and moved away from the AAP. The idea of Modi as PM, Kejriwal as CM, which we saw in 2015-20 is over. Do you agree broadly the BJP was most successful in making the middle class see itself as most attractive?
So I think BJP certainly sealed the middle class swing away from its pocket burrow into the Aam Aadmi Party. They were able to stop that bleed for sure. But they also chipped away into poor men vote base, because I'm of the view that it is not the entirely that two intersectionalities, 2 parts, like the gender advantage also goes to Aam Aadmi Party and the lower class or the poor class advantage also going to the Aam Aadmi Party. They wouldn't have ended up in this scenario had both these categories sort of supported them to this extent. So there has been dent even in the poorer section, and BJP did a lot of efforts identifying Jhuggi Jhopdis, giving leaders the tasks to make special outreaches into those Jhuggi Jhopdis. Where did all these Sangh meetings of 50,000 small gully nukkad meetings that they did? It did not happen in the posh colonies of Delhi. It happened in all of these JJ colonies. And I think this is where BJP knew all they needed was small chipping away of the poorer section, which, Arvind Kejriwal created a client class there. He had a transactional relationship with that class. I'm going to give you free this, free that, take money from me or take a bus ride from me and vote for me. I think BJP was attempting to convince them that governance, basic civic governance is also your right. So you should also go out. Your people on the poorer section of the society will also fall sick if you do not have clean drinking water, if you do not have basic sanitation and garbage is spilled all over in the Jhuggi Jhopdis. So I think the BJP's attempt was to take away 5, 10, 15% and do the other job of ensuring that the middle class is won over. And, with middle class was showing early signs that it is not going to slip away the way it has been doing, primarily because, middle class also hold the moral compass very dearly, very close to themselves. And I think all the top leaders, whoever went to jail, they were ousted.
That's, Ashutosh, let's look at this middle class phenomenon in the context of AAP. AAP emerges out of India against corruption as the anger of the middle class against seeming manifest corruption of the political class. Do you believe the middle class moved away from Arvind Kejriwal because he lost his moral halo after the charges of corruption, after the BJP ran this aggressive campaign that Kejriwal lives in a rather opulent so-called Sheesh Mahal? Do you believe that is what let them down, or governance issues, garbage, sewage, condition of roads, pollution, Yamuna?
See, Rajdeep, when you only talk about the middle class per se, that middle class is a huge segment in Delhi. Let's not forget it. That the per capita income of Delhi is 4.61 lakh. So, in comparison to all India middle class, which is comprised of something around 31%, Delhi it is something more than 50%. So here the middle class has three segments: upper middle class, middle class, and the lower middle class. Amongst the upper middle class and the affluent class who lives in the gated colonies and in the bungalows, obviously BJP is a clear winner. But among the middle class, I'm sure middle class, the BJP has created certain dents, which was once a bastion of Aam Aadmi Party. But among the lower middle class and the poor section of society, I think Aam Aadmi Party still holds its ground, because Aam Aadmi Party cannot have 43.57% vote share unless it has a large section of the middle class and the lower middle class intact with them. The BJP certainly has created a breach, because BJP, along with the JDU and LJP, has got 47.15% vote share. So this is only possible if the BJP minus, if you just keep Muslim votes away and the Sikh votes away, across all the Hindu section of society, BJP has got substantial vote. So,
but do you agree that the middle class dip was because they saw that Arvind Kejriwal was no longer a politician with a difference, or they perceived that Arvind Kejriwal lost the perception game when it came to the middle class?
See, Rasif, it is not the lower middle class, but it's basically upper middle class and the affluent class which got mesmerized by Arvind Kejriwal and his charisma. It was this section of society which has given huge money to Arvind Kejriwal when he asked for the crowdfunding. And because within few days, Aam Aadmi Party got 20 crores in 2013 assembly election, if you remember. So the issue is, the middle class is always the engine of revolution anywhere in the world. So this middle class, when it got disillusioned and greatly disillusioned, that is why the BJP could increase its vote share from 38% to 47%, along with the LJP and JDU. So this huge jump of almost 8 to 9%, this is only possible if a large section of the upper middle class and a lower and the middle class has moved away from the Aam Aadmi Party and gone to the BJP. Without that, it is not possible. So there is a lot of sense of betrayal amongst the upper middle class and the middle class, that look, we wanted Arvind Kejriwal to be changing the politics, but politics has changed him.
Interesting the way you're putting it. The middle class wanted Arvind Kejriwal to change politics. Politics has changed him, is what Ashutosh, his former aide, comrade, whatever way you want to look at it, is saying at the moment. Let me turn therefore to my next question. And this is a question that could play out not just today, but in the days and weeks ahead, because of alliance politics. Did the Congress in this election play the role of the ultimate spoiler? I'm going to, in a moment, show you 13 constituencies where the gap between the BJP and the Aam Aadmi Party is less than the votes polled by the Congress candidates, one of whom even came second in Kasturba Nagar, that was Abhishek Dutt. Yogendra Yadav, there are those today who are saying the Congress is gleeful. If the BJP is feeling exuberant, so is the Congress. Do you believe that this, what we've seen play out today, is the end of the India alliance? 9 months ago, Arvind Kejriwal and Congress tied up in Delhi. 9 months later, they were personally attacking each other. Is it the end of the road for the India alliance?
Not necessarily, Rajdeep. I don't know of Congress people who are gleeful. I've learned some of them have been so. And if so, it's very sad, it's counterproductive. Today is not the day for vicarious pleasure. I think this is the day for India coalition to sit down and say, okay, let's stop this one-upmanship. If in Haryana it was Congress's responsibility to take everyone else along, in Delhi it was Aam Aadmi Party's responsibility to take everyone else along. And this language of, Congress contested against us, therefore it's a B party of BJP, in which case Aam Aadmi Party was the B party of BJP in Gujarat, in Goa, in Uttarakhand and so on. So let's not get into this. To my mind, yes, it is true, if Congress and Aam Aadmi Party had contested, not merely seat adjustment. I think this simple arithmetic addition doesn't work in politics, because a substantial chunk of the vote that Congress got in Delhi was not merely anti-BJP vote. It was in many cases also anti-Aam Aadmi Party vote. So it's not merely arithmetic addition, but yes, if both of them had worked together from Lok Sabha election onwards, in Lok Sabha, although they contested together, but they did not have very good understanding at the ground level. If both parties had come together, contested, and for that the onus must be in this instance on Aam Aadmi Party, then they would have definitely done better, and given that small margin that we are now finally looking at, it could have made all the difference. But that would have required not just seat adjustment, it would have also required looking at issues like what kind of stance to take on communalism. Aam Aadmi Party has taken a very strange stand. Their stand is that basically you have to operate within the frame given by the BJP. Can Congress go along with that? The kind of role Aam Aadmi played or did not play during Delhi riots. Bulldozers happen in the city. The ruling party is quiet, is watching, if not applauding. BJP and Aam Aadmi Party are competing against each other to demonstrate who is more anti-Muslim. The pretext, of course, is Rohingyas. Now, if that kind of politics is done by Aam Aadmi Party, can you expect a party like Congress to go with it? That would be very hard and very unfortunate. So these things have to be sorted out. We cannot simply say, come together, form an alliance, work together. There are deeper issues that need to be worked out, and they cannot be worked out 3 weeks before election.
Interesting the way you're putting it. I just want to get Sanjay Kumar on the point of arithmetic and chemistry. Clearly, there was no chemistry between the AAP and the Congress during the Lok Sabha election. They lost all 7 seats of Delhi. But the arithmetic, do you believe that we would have had a really closer fight had there been seat adjustments between the Aam Aadmi Party and the Congress?
I did mention this, Rajdeep, in my earlier remarks, that if Aam Aadmi Party and Congress had come together, formed an alliance, as Yogenji was mentioning, not only forming an alliance, but you respect each other partner. It's not that even if you are in alliance, you keep criticizing each other. Then the results, I'm not saying that there would have been, BJP could have got defeated, but the results would have been slightly different. At least the gap which we are looking at in terms of number of seats, 22 versus 48, at least this would not have been there. Aam Aadmi Party, Congress alliance could have won election, could have come, but could have certainly come much closer to the tally of BJP, and the difference between the two would have been maybe 4 or 5 seats, not more than that.
There's another X factor, Rajat, which, has not been discussed perhaps enough. The impact of that income tax cut. The benefits that came. 1st of February, the budget announces a substantial income tax cut, takes the limit from 7 lakhs to 12 lakhs, those who won't have to pay taxes. Do you believe that made a crucial difference in the middle class feeling that Narendra Modi ki guarantee hai one side versus Arvind Kejriwal? Forget governance issues. It was also a bit of the middle class feeling, Mr. Modi is our man.
So, Rajdeep ji, the way campaigns are designed, it has to peak and crescendo out at the right time, right? Had this budget announcement been there on the 15th of January, no matter how big this entire announcement was, it was just timed to beautiful perfection, and it couldn't have been a better time. 72 hours before Delhi was going to vote, it was there. So whatever little bit of, it was the last final finishing touch that was done by the BJP. And it had such a positive message that, okay, now for the final outreach that we will do to the constituents, to the voters, we will have something even bigger to show to them, that we are bringing this to the table and wait for more once we come into power. So I think that's how you build up momentum in a way that every passing day adds on to your vote share. And this is what we've been debating. It was the last 2 weeks where BJP sort of kick-started its hockey stick, that curve which suddenly took off, and Kejriwal's thing, because their campaign plateaued out, their campaign messaging plateaued out, and it just stuck where it was. It was never able to build momentum henceforth. And I think this has been an important definitely Nirmala ji and Prime Minister Narendra Modi needs to be thanked by the Delhi's MLAs, BJP MLAs, for giving them this gift with which they could, stitch this narrative and come out with a beautiful campaign end to end.
Okay, let's take a break. I want to, after the break, Yogendra Yadav and my other guests talk about a final intriguing question. Where does Arvind Kejriwal or Aam Aadmi Party go from here? I have guests on my show who have been identified with that movement. Is it the end of the road for him? Arvind Kejriwal, a politician who emerged out of virtually nowhere to, in a way, become quite a figure in Indian politics, a startup unicorn, if you want to call him that. Does Arvind Kejriwal still have a future? That's my final question that I want to pose today on this big day of the Delhi verdict. Yogendra Yadav, you know him better than most in a way. Can he bounce back?
Rajdeep, allow me to begin by responding to Rajat, because I completely agree with him. The budget was timed so perfectly, crescendo as he described, just 3 days before voting, and it swung the election finally in favor of BJP. There's one thing he forgot to ask. Who had designed this crescendo? Who had timed it? It was the Election Commission of India which did it. The Chief Election Commissioner was asked this question when the schedule was announced. Sir, only 3 days before that you have union budget. Can the union budget affect it? And the Chief Election Commission had assured this country, this budget shall not have anything to do, any impact on Delhi election. I will ensure it. I will write to the Chief Cabinet Secretary. He said, and I would ensure that even playing ground is maintained. What happened to that?
So can I come
This
in?
is such a disgraceful conduct on the part of Election Commission, I must say. That's one. No, allow me to now continue and answer the answer and respond to that. It's not so much a response to you, Rajat. I agree with you. On the larger question about Arvind's future, the easiest thing, Rajdeep, in the world is to kick someone who's down. I wouldn't do that, and I wouldn't allow my personal experience with him, which was rather unfortunate, to come in the way of my assessment. He's a fighter. He's someone who would come back. He would come back with something or the other. But the odds are very heavy. Odds are heavy, one, because notwithstanding the fact that the result is actually a very small defeat, the kind of defeat political parties can recover from, nothing unusual. You win 2 big elections, you lose 1, you come back. That's not a big thing. But the problem is that the party is completely Delhi-centered, the party is election-centered, and the party is Arvind Kejriwal-centered, because of which the impact of his personal defeat and this electoral defeat can be very big. Gujarat and Uttarakhand do not offer any spaces for party to even repeat what they did last time. Haryana has been no breakthrough. So it all now hinges on Punjab. Punjab, which is very impatient with poor governance. And sadly, the Aam Aadmi Party government's record in Punjab is not much to write home about. So the odds are stacked against him. Odds are also stacked against him because BJP would not stop at electoral defeat of Aam Aadmi Party. I would not be surprised if we now see serious attempts at breaking the party, CBI raids, ED, and what have you. And how would the party take it in a situation when all the idealist leaders and workers of the party have systematically left, when party has been open to all kinds of political entrepreneurs who would bargain? Would they stand with the party in the face of all this? These are big questions. I would not write the obituary of Aam Aadmi Party or of Arvind Kejriwal so soon, but he is up against very serious odds.
Let me leave it there. I wish we had more time. Rajat, I know you wanted to intervene. You've had a lot of opportunity through the day.
I think Yogendra Yadav ji just made a phenomenal case for one nation, one election. Let no budget influence any election outcome. See, this is where you have a dishonest analysis. Are you saying that 150 crore Indians should wait with bated breath for the next financial year to come out with anything that the government wants to do just because a small city is going into elections?
This is a separate.
Why don't you have one nation, one vote?
This kind of election to be held 3 days prior to that.
This has to be called out.
Why could Delhi
Rajat, you made your point. Yogendraji, you made your point. This is a separate debate. Whether the union budget should have been framed in the manner it was 3 days before a Delhi election, should the election commission have stepped in, is the institution failing? All these questions can be asked. I appreciate all my guests joining us. We had news and analysis without the noise, except for a bit at the last 30 seconds, but that's okay. I want to leave you with a song. As always on election days, I like to have a song because music is the way to take forward life. Listen to the music. Mr. Kejriwal, will he live to fight another day? We'll wait and see. For now, it's been the BJP's day to end their political vanvas in Delhi. Thanks for watching. Stay well, stay safe. Good night, Shubhratri, Jai Hind, Namaskar.